short, we call it Ken H.
Ken H.
And Ken is going to be speaking, and what happens when you show up. Ken H, what happens when you show up?
You know, a long time ago when I had my first job, it was in a McDonald's in Ellesmere, Delaware, which, a little side note, was the heroin capital of the state of Delaware. It was quite an interesting place to work. But they couldn't remember that my name was Ken, so they called me Shorty. So please, you know, Ken H is fine, but never Shorty. So a few years ago, I met a client. Her name is, I forgot her name. Anyway, she was a very smart woman. Amy Littleton was her name. And Amy was a creative director at an agency, and they were one of our clients. And Amy was one of these gals who she always, whatever group she was in, she always took part. She was the president, she was the vice president, she was always a volunteer. And she said to me, Ken, if you're going to get involved in anything, show up. Well, what do you mean, Amy? What do you mean by showing up? Well, do more. Be something more. Don't just come to the meetings and expect things are going to happen. So I always remembered that. I always thought, okay, if I'm going to go somewhere, I should show up. And as I started networking, it became really important to show up. And so what would happen is, one group that I belong to is the International Association of Business Communicators. So I would go to their meetings. I would go to the lunches every month, and I would go to the networking events. And a funny thing happened. People thought I actually was really interested in being part of the group. And they would come to me and say, would you like to volunteer to be on a committee? And that was something I wasn't bargaining for, you know. I was going there to show up, but I wanted to go there to meet people and hopefully generate new business. So it was interesting now that they were asking me to step forward even a little more. And I'm kind of out of my league on it a little bit. I'm the co-chairman of membership. I know nothing about the group much other than I know about the networking events. And so one of the things I'm going to do is to actually ask members, why are you here? Why do you come to this group? What is important about you? And so hopefully I'm going to take that information and I'm going to help get new members. Another group that I have been going to is a few years ago in our village, I live in the village of Clarendon Hills, which is about 25 miles west of here. And there was a big community referendum on political status called home rule. So home rule is something that is communities above 25,000 residents. They have the opportunity to make a lot of rules and ordinances and laws that are less restricted by the state. Clarendon Hills has a population of about 7,800. And so we were too small for home rule. But one thing about smaller communities is revenue is a very important thing to come in. No one likes to be taxed. No one likes to have their property taxes go up each year. But it happens because there's a lot of reasons. So I went to the village hall meeting there were several public hearings on home rule and what it all means for the village. So I decided, well, I want to know more as a resident. I want to go, I want to show up. So I started to go to the meeting, and there were like 3 or 4 different public meetings. And you find that your neighbors have very different viewpoints than you do. And I found I actually liked them. I actually liked knowing what my neighbors thought. I actually was very interested in hearing their opinion, and then myself thinking, okay, how do we balance this all out? In any event, the home rule went down disastrously at the election. No one wanted to look past the reason why the village was doing it. They only saw that you guys are going to raise our taxes, and we certainly don't want that. So that went down in flames. But what I realized is, when I showed up, again, I really had this interest in knowing what was going on in the community. And even if it was a mundane ordinance that was coming up to hire an IT provider, it was interesting to me to find out this process of what was going on. Sometimes you realize that the political process is like the sausage factory. It's better that you don't really know what's going on. But I like knowing what was going in that sausage. So 2 years later, after I've gone to numerous village hall meetings, one of the residents decided to leave the village. He was an older gentleman, he had retired, he wanted to downsize. You know, all of us in these western suburbs, you know, we have these huge houses that we don't need once the kids go off to college. So Steve Wallace was his name. He decided to move to Elmhurst. And it just so happened that in most of the village hall meetings, when there's not a big issue to be discussed, there are only 2 or 3 people that show up. One is Mr. Turner. That's all we know him by, Mr. Turner. He is like a 70-year resident of Clarendon Hills. He lives just a block or 2 from the village hall, and he comes to every meeting. He is always there, which is kind of cool. Then there was a guy named Gerald, who also I noticed started coming in the home rule controversy, and then there was me. And so the village president called me one day. I saw his ID on my phone going, why is he calling me? And he said, Ken, have you ever thought about joining the village board? And I said, not really. He said, well, I think you would be really good for it. And so I want you to consider filling in for Steve Wallace. So I thought about it for a little bit, and I decided yes. So now I am a politician. So it is an elected position, but I have been appointed for this position. And come in April, I will be running for the office. And we are now going through a very tough political situation in our village, because what we've decided to do is to re-look at what's called the Downtown Master Plan. Now, all cities and villages in the state of Illinois are required by law to have what's called a comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan is a plan that shows land use. It's a plan that helps your community look forward and figure out what do you want to be in the future. And so the last one was done in 2006 when real estate development was blowing through the roof, and Clarendon Hills hired several consultant firms, municipality consultant firms, and they put together this plan. Had no input from the village residents. They were literally putting streets in places that there weren't streets, putting them through buildings that existed today, and consequently the plan just went to hell. No one was going to do anything on this plan. So now we're looking at this plan again. And it turns out there's some really controversial figures. I'm not sure, I don't remember what the red is.
It means that you're on top.
So time was.
Well, see, I'm sorry, because I didn't think I'd go this far, but I really enjoyed talking about my political career.